Hello once again everyone, and welcome back to HEMA exercises. So today I want to talk about our parries, and specifically I want to talk about the idea of pre-parrying, and then also, and not just in the initial context, but also in a follow-up context. So, and for this I've decided to use the Saber, though of course this transfers to pretty much everything. But essentially what I'm talking about here is, what is pre-parrying? Pre-parrying is when you are adding, or rather you're subtracting time from the attack coming in to your defense being formed. So generally, I'm going to use the Pendle's it's right here. Generally speaking, you have a simple equation working for most fencing. There is the idea of distance equals time, time equals life. That meaning, as long as you are far enough away, regardless of how fast an opponent can attack, they still have to cover that distance to get you. Meaning that you have time to see it coming, you have time to act, and generally, when that attack lands, it's going to be reaching you from a good whiles away. Now, most people think about this as pure linear distance, but the same is also true in regards to lateral, which we'll get to in a second. But anyway, essentially what pre-parrying is when someone cuts in at you, and this could be in kind of lateral plane and distance-wise, is, let's say a cut is coming toward me, rather than just, okay, cut's actually coming to the point it threatens me, close that off. We're instead punching out to try and catch it. In regards to things like messer, this is generally referred to people who seek your blade. It can occasionally be a useful idea to do, but generally the issue is that by going out to try and catch something, not only am I exposing more of me, as I'll talk about in a follow-up video soon, but also I'm shortening the amount of time I have to make the decision. So when an attack is coming down, whatever attack it may be, it always has the possibility of doing one of two things. Either the attack evolves, that could be by someone using their footwork to change the attack, that could be they turn their angle or things along those lines, or it can become an entirely different attack, that would be something like a feint, right? Because you can certainly get a cut almost landing, you see that defense and then make it go somewhere else. Not even necessarily in the feint most people are expecting, it can literally be as simple as just tracing around a guard or things along those lines. And certainly if you're showing that you predictably put your arm out there, it's very easy to go around. So, you're shortening the time by pre-parrying, and that does you no good. In regards to pre-parrying on this plane, what we're talking about here is, let's say the cut is coming around, it hasn't even really started to threaten this zone yet, and I'm already on the move. So I'm kind of trying to stay one for one with my opponent. They start moving, I start moving. The problem with this then is the same idea. One, that attack is not fully formed. It could turn into other things that can beat whatever shape I'm making. Two, it could always go somewhere else that I am exposing. So that's just that on this point. Now you don't want to pre-parry because then, boom, you're quite predictable. Now if someone is just attacking at you willy-nilly, then it can be very difficult to even notice if pre-parrying is happening. And certainly if you often fence around people that fight with a lot of speed, but not necessarily a lot of consideration. Maybe either the playbook is limited due to what you do, due to your experience level, or things along those lines. You may not notice it at first. But once you encounter people who have a little more, kit in their tool bag, it's going to become a lot more apparent, and their attacks will seem much harder to deal with compared to the things you've been facing before. And it's a hard habit to break once you have it. So, there is that. Pre-parrying doesn't do you any favors. The other thing it doesn't do for you is it gives you less control. So let's talk about initiative here, and we're gonna go ahead and use the term, we're gonna use the translated terms from Vor and Knock, just for sake of ease, because I really like the way it boils down. Essentially the idea is, one of you is causing stimulus, the one with the initiative, right? So I move my blade by starting the attack, you are responding to it, I am in control. You are having to do what I say and respect what I am doing. Now you can take that back by using a single time counter or something else that makes me now have to respond to an aggressive action of yours, or you can listen to me and follow along. Now, in general, the idea of counterattack, seizing back the initiative, is what you're looking for, right? Someone goes to cut around at me, rather than parry riposte, which is absolutely a fine option, this parry gives them window to attack me again, as long as I'm in control, but it's fine. But would it not be better if instead of parry riposte, which takes time, I could counter? And if I can do that, then now you're having to listen to me and I'm now in control again. You're essentially always either attacking or counterattacking, which is really just attacking. Boom, you win all the time. Except that's not always true. There are times when you can't. do that, either because your opponent is not listening, because you are not able to against whatever stimulus they're throwing, or also because you just don't know how to yet. Maybe you can't see the timing you need to take, and you need to just focus on gaining some ground. Another thing to consider is sometimes, and this is less in our context, but more in a life or death scenario, you don't want to counterattack, you just want to get out of there. So, with that in mind, sometimes it is better to go ahead and hang out, not having the initiative, but keeping yourself safe so that way your opponent exhausts themselves, creates an opening that you could either properly take, because it's much clearer, switch the initiative of the fight, or use that time to get away. Now, pre-parrying really messes with this. The reason being is because if every time my opponent attacks, I'm already trying to predict where they're going to go, I'm stuck listening to them. Because there's never let's say, a period at the end of their sentence, essentially. So if my opponent attacks at me, they take an opening that I have created, and I close it, they may very well attack again. I can't stop them from doing that. But they have to go around whatever stimulus I made. I get a say, essentially. I can't stop them from being in control, but I can influence what they do. And this is how I start to build my ability to take the initiative back. Because, let's say, mirroring around with me, you take this opening, and I control it. If you want to hit me again, you have to go to one of the other openings that I have purposefully opened. Whether or not I'm even looking to riposte back at you, at the very least, I have closed this off. This is shut. You must go somewhere else. If you combine this with a little bit of distance, so for example, a small retreat or a small traversal at the same time, now I'm adding back to that initial equation I talked about. Your next attack must not only go to a place I determined, but it has to go slower than it could have otherwise because I've gotten further away from it. And especially in regards to lateral, if we're talking about things like longsword, that can make a huge difference. Rather than your opponent getting to spring around you and seem so fast, they now have to do the big, wide steps to really get anything going. And that really does slow down a lot of complex attacks, including Zverkopter. So, with that in mind, the thing that pre-parrying does is it messes this up. Rather than me closing off a line, retreating behind it if I have to, or even closing off a line, closing off a second line and retreating behind it, I always have that time to, if he's going to go there and I'm not going to riposte, I can leave. Pre-parrying, even if you are trying to keep your distance at the same time, you're inviting them to go everywhere. And now you have to look for the actual attack to land before you get to say anything. There's always that moment of uncertainty, which means if you start pre-parrying when someone is attacking at you, you're not safe until you're physically far enough they can't hit you. That's a lot harder to do than it seems. Because for that whole stretch, your opponent has complete control. There's nothing you can do to launch an offensive action of quality. Now, mind you, you can just attack out of panic, and as an attacker, you need to watch out for this. But, if we're talking about a good quality hit as what most of us fence for, this is not something to be afraid of. They can't mount a good offense without a good defense. So as far as the attacker is concerned, if you're literally just trying to run away, there is no reason they should not chase you down as far as they can. So, what we should focus on instead, if an attack is coming toward us, let it come all the way to the point it actually scares me. I'm not worried about it out there. I'm not defending that guy. I'm defending this guy. Until it gets to the point it actually scares me, I will not close it off. Because in that moment, I guarantee that that attack is going to land, it's going to hit my blade, and I will have a solid moment of time where I am in control and my say is being heard. If they wish to attack again, they must go around this shape. If I don't like that, I can always retreat with it. So don't reach out, don't parry too soon, and then also, if someone does start to get you moving, okay, so because it's unavoidable, right? You're going to be fencing someone and they're going to just have your number. Maybe this is I kind of call it mojo, but essentially the idea is they are someone that you can't mount an offensive against because you're afraid of them, essentially. You've given them too much mojo. You can't stop yourself from listening to them. Can't stop yourself from pre-parrying things that maybe haven't even happened yet. What you can do is at least take the chance of, fine, I can't control where you're going to attack, but I can at least make it so that you can only go to so many places. And this is again where we get to the idea of good guard with retreating footwork. Okay? I find myself starting to listen to my opponent. Okay, this is bad. I need to lock something down. Do so. Choose whatever is your most likely guard. In the case of Saber, the best chance would be hanging guard because this parries everything, right? I have a whole video on it. Choose a guard that protects you the most in that situation and retreat firmly behind it, only moving your sword if they actually go for something. In regards to longsword, this could be something like the long point, and I'm talking about an active long point, not just leaving your sword out there. In regards to, and that's pretty much true for all the sword stuff. In regards to rapier or small sword slang, that could be a nice simple in the middle terza, or you could even lock down a line firmly by going into quarta or secunda. Anything that gives you, I am closing this off, and it's something that's going to make you have to actually take an offensive action and gain your distance. It's hard, because you'll want your hand to move, and if you forget about your feet, even if you are trying to run away, you're never going to win that equation. You always have to doggedly close something off, retreat behind it. So what if they attack? You can't stop them, but I can limit their options. It'll take some time to get used to, but this is how you kill pre-parrying, and essentially it's how you're going to stop yourself from doing so. If you catch yourself pre-parrying, you just loop back to that same idea of, I'm listening to them, I shouldn't be. Lock something down, get out of distance, reassess, come back in. And furthermore, if we were talking life or death fight, nope, bye, get distance, run away. But either way, that is what pre-parrying is, how to recognize it, and hopefully how to get yourself out of that rut. Thank you very, very much for watching. We'll go over some other techniques another time.